Okay, so here's what went down. You remember how Blake Lively was trying to get Justin Baldoni to pay for the damage to her reputation after all those mean girl accusations blowing up online? Well, that whole strategy has completely backfired. Things have gotten so intense that she's reportedly breaking down in court, while Justin's team is pushing hard to have her financial details laid out publicly. To quickly recap, Blake has been insisting that Justin orchestrated a smear campaign against her, while he's firing back, saying that's not true at all, and claiming she's the one who tried to damage his image. The situation has only gotten messier with time. A few months ago, both sides finally appeared at the U.S. District Courthouse in Manhattan for a court-ordered settlement conference, basically a last attempt to resolve things privately without a full trial. But instead of progress, there was complete tension. They didn't even acknowledge each other. No conversation, no eye contact, nothing. The court had to keep them in separate rooms, trying to mediate between them for 6 hours straight. In the end, it was a total failure. No agreement, no resolution, just more hostility carried over from the original conflict. And once that door to settlement closed, Justin's legal team didn't hold back. They came in aggressively, filing motions to force Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds to disclose their full net worth and financial records in front of the jury. We're talking about a combined fortune estimated at around $400 million.
That's massive. But this wasn't just a power move. It was a calculated legal tactic. His team argued that their wealth is directly relevant to the case. And when you really think about it, you can see why they're pushing so hard to get that information in front of the court. A $400 million fortune doesn't exactly paint the picture of someone powerless being crushed by a major Hollywood director with a PR machine. It paints the picture of someone with serious influence, deep connections, and massive resources. And the moment Blake Lively's legal team saw that demand to expose her finances, they immediately moved to shut it down. Her lawyers rushed to court, asking the judge to block any disclosure of her wealth to the jury. Their argument was pretty clear. If everyday jurors saw just how rich she and Ryan Reynolds actually are, it could create a strong bias against them. They were worried that regular people would look at that level of wealth and see her claims not as genuine harm, but as complaints coming from ultra-rich celebrities who don't face real-world problems. Without directly saying it, her team essentially acknowledged that a jury might struggle to sympathize with someone sitting on that kind of fortune. And realistically, that concern isn't unfounded. It's hard to maintain a victim narrative when your net worth is pushing $500 million. But here's where things get strategically sharp from Justin Baldoni's side. His
legal team didn't just ask for those financial records randomly. They built a situation that boxed Blake into a corner. The moment she filed for $161 million in damages, claiming her businesses and career were harmed, she effectively made her financial status a key part of the case. You can't demand that kind of compensation without clearly showing what you had before and what you lost after. It's not enough to throw out a number and expect the court to accept it. You need detailed proof. That means documentation, tax returns, company earnings, bank statements, everything. So legally, Justin's team had strong grounds to demand full financial disclosure. And that's the trap. If she refuses to show the records, her $161 million claim falls apart. But if she does provide them, the jury gets a full view of just how wealthy she is, which could seriously weaken her argument. It's a no-win situation. Either she can't prove her losses, or she risks losing credibility in front of the jury. Now, when you actually start digging into the claims she's making in those court filings, the numbers themselves are where things get even more intense. She's officially claiming a staggering $161.2 million in damages, saying Justin Baldoni's alleged smear campaign cost her that much. Think about that for a second. That's not a symbolic lawsuit or a simple apology she's after. She's demanding a massive financial payout. And it doesn't even stop there. Her legal team was reportedly preparing to push for triple damages, which could take the total close to $500 million. That's an enormous number, and it raises the stakes of this case to another level entirely. According to her claims, about $56.2 million comes from lost earnings tied to acting roles, speaking engagements, and major brand deals that allegedly fell apart once the controversy started gaining attention. She's essentially arguing that the negative press scared off studios and companies that were ready to work with her. On top of that, she's claiming $71 million in lost business profits, specifically tied to her ventures like her hair care line and beverage brands. The argument there is that once the situation went public, consumer trust dropped, sales declined, and her companies took a major financial hit. Then there's another $34 million attributed purely to reputational damage, basically saying that the harm to her public image alone justifies a huge additional payout. Add everything together, and you get that $161.2 million figure she says she's owed. But Justin Baldoni's legal team pushed back hard, arguing that claims like these can't just be taken at face value. If she says her company's lost millions, then they want full access to financial records, tax filings, profit statements, and internal documents to verify every number. The same goes for her acting career. If she claims she lost major deals, they want proof she was actually earning at that level before all of this happened. And
importantly, they didn't just focus on Blake. They brought Ryan Reynolds into the equation as well, arguing that their finances and business ventures are closely tied, making his earnings and records relevant to the broader financial picture. She would often pass on acting opportunities if they clashed with Ryan Reynolds' schedule, since his projects typically brought in much bigger paychecks. So Justin Baldoni's team argued that any dip in her acting income might not be due to reputational damage at all. It could simply be a personal choice to prioritize her husband's career over her own. And that's a completely different narrative than someone actively sabotaging her from the outside. What started as a financial dispute was quickly shaping up to reveal much more than just numbers. It threatened to pull back the curtain on how Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds operate, not just as a couple, but as a tightly coordinated business unit. And with key dates approaching, there was growing anticipation that more behind-the-scenes details would surface, especially regarding her conduct with studio executives during the production. According to various claims circulating around the situation, the real conflict may have started on the set of It Ends With Us. Justin Baldoni had reportedly secured the rights to the project years earlier and built it from the ground up as both director and creative lead. But tensions allegedly escalated once Blake became more involved. Some accounts suggest she pushed for greater control over the film, bringing in outside input, including from Ryan Reynolds, without full coordination, and requesting access to areas like the editing process, which is typically restricted. There are also claims that disagreements with the studio became increasingly intense, with demands being made about creative direction and even marketing decisions. However, it's important to recognize that many of these details come from unverified reports and competing narratives, and in disputes like this, both sides often present very different versions of events. What's clear is that the situation evolved far beyond a simple disagreement, turning into a complex clash over control, credit, and ultimately, reputation. Imagine being in a position where a major film's release could be influenced by one person's demands. That's the level this situation is being described at. According to these claims, tensions escalated so much during production that the studio found itself stuck between protecting the project and managing internal conflict. The executives involved, including senior leadership at Sony Pictures, were reportedly under intense pressure to keep everything on track without losing a key star attached to a high-budget film. Even though It Ends With Us went on to perform strongly at the global box office, crossing hundreds of millions in revenue, the behind-the-scenes friction allegedly left a lasting impression on those in charge. There are also claims about internal communications from top executives expressing frustration over how the situation was handled, though it's important to note that such reports are often selectively leaked or interpreted and may not represent the full internal context. Where things get even more complicated is how this ties into the core of Blake Lively's legal argument. Her case centers on the idea that her public image and career took a major hit due to a coordinated effort against her. She's pointing to a sharp decline in public favor. Data from analytics firms reportedly showed a significant drop in how audiences perceived her during that period.
Her legal team argues that this wasn't a natural shift in public opinion, but the result of a targeted PR campaign. They even named specific crisis management professionals, claiming they were hired to influence online narratives and amplify negative sentiment. According to those allegations, substantial amounts of money were spent to shape public perception. However, these claims are part of an ongoing legal dispute, and they remain contested. The other side is expected to challenge both the data and the interpretation behind it, arguing that any decline in reputation could have stemmed from public reactions to events
themselves, rather than a coordinated campaign. In the end, this becomes one of the central questions of the case. Was her image damaged by deliberate manipulation, or was it a consequence of how the situation unfolded publicly? Now, Blake accused these PR agents of something called astroturfing, which is basically creating hundreds of fake robotic accounts on sites like Reddit and TikTok to post bad things about her and make it look like a real grassroots movement of angry fans. She claimed these paid PR agents flooded the internet with over 100 million hits, calling her a mean girl and a bully, all through online campaigns designed to make regular people think everyone disliked her. Justin Baldoni's defense called this entire accusation completely ridiculous. They argued that the 71-point drop was entirely organic, which means real, actual people, by themselves, decided they hated her because of her own choices, not because some PR team paid to make it happen. And honestly, when you look at what she actually did during that press tour, you can see why normal people turned against her so hard. When Justin Baldoni went on the press tour, he talked seriously about the trauma of abuse and worked with actual domestic charities to try and help real survivors. He took the material seriously because it deserved to be taken. Seriously? But Blake? She treated the whole movie like it was a fun summer comedy. She told fans to, quote, grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it. Like this was some kind of beach read or a lighthearted date movie, instead of a story about a woman escaping a messy relationship. She used interviews to sell her new shampoo and hair care line. She heavily promoted her alcohol company, which absolutely outraged fans, who pointed out that alcohol is literally a major trigger for what's happening inside the movie. You're promoting an alcoholic beverage while talking about a movie where a woman gets shamed by her husband. That's a really bad look. Matter of fact, at the movie's premiere party, she named a cocktail the Ryle You Wait. For those who haven't seen the movie, Ryle is the name of the husband in the story, who mistreats the main character throughout the entire film. She named a drink and treated it like a cute joke for a party celebrating a movie about serious wrongdoing. At this point, Justin Baldoni's lawyers are going to show the jury that they absolutely did not need to pay $75,000 for fake Reddit accounts to make people mad at Blake Lively. She made the entire world mad at her all by herself by trying to sell shampoo and booze on the back of a movie about battered women and treating the whole thing like one big party. The fans didn't need to be manipulated into disliking her. They just watched what she did and decided they didn't want anything to do with someone who would act that way. So everything is now aimed directly at May 18th, 2026 in Manhattan. And both sides are loading up with heavy ammunition for this thing. The witness list has basically turned into a war zone all by itself because both teams are fighting over who gets to testify and who gets blocked from taking the stand. Blake Lively is demanding that multiple famous people should testify, starting with her own husband, Ryan Reynolds. She wants him to testify about how much money they lost and how absolutely devastated she was throughout the entire controversy. Like, imagine being a jury member and having to sit there while Ryan Reynolds explains. There were also some major names being pulled into this situation, which could turn the trial into a full Hollywood spectacle. Blake Lively's team is reportedly lining up witnesses to support her version of events, including actress Jenny Slate, who previously made strong comments about Justin Baldoni, and even Colleen Hoover, the author behind It Ends With Us. Blake's side wants Colleen to testify and back up her narrative about what happened
during production, but Justin Baldoni's legal team is pushing back hard against that, especially when it comes to Hoover. Their argument is pretty straightforward.
Someone who wasn't physically present on set during filming can't really provide firsthand testimony about what actually happened behind the scenes. From their perspective, her involvement is too removed to be relevant in a courtroom setting. At the same time, Justin's lawyers are leaning on a fairness argument. If Blake is allowed to bring in witnesses and raise certain claims, then he should have the same opportunity to counter them with his own evidence and testimony. But the biggest issue hanging over Blake Lively's case right now is the question of proof. Her entire $161 million claim is built around the idea that there was a coordinated smear campaign against her. However, according to what's been argued so far, there's very little concrete evidence publicly presented to support that. Her team has pointed to the use of encrypted messaging apps like Signal, suggesting that key communications may have been deleted, creating what they call an evidentiary gap. The problem is, in court, that kind of argument usually isn't enough on its own. You can't rely on the possibility that evidence once existed, you have to present verifiable proof. Without it, the claim becomes much harder to sustain.
With the trial date approaching, this imbalance could become a major factor. If one side walks in with detailed documentation and the other relies more on inference and missing data, that contrast can be difficult to overcome. Add in internal studio reactions, disputed accounts from production, and the high financial stakes, and it's clear this case is shaping up to be less about headlines and more about who can actually prove their story under legal scrutiny. There's no question both sides are gearing up for a serious legal battle, and once everything comes out in court, it's likely to be a turning point for one of them. But it's worth being careful about jumping to conclusions this early. In cases like this, what's circulating online is often incomplete, selective, or framed in a certain way. Courtrooms operate very differently. Claims need evidence, arguments get challenged, and narratives can shift quickly once both sides are fully heard. So while it might seem like one side has the upper hand right now, that can change fast when everything is tested under legal scrutiny. As for the bigger question, whether wealth affects how a jury feels, that's actually a real concern in legal strategy. Juries are made up of everyday people, and extreme wealth can sometimes influence perception, especially in cases involving damages. That's exactly why financial disclosures become such a sensitive issue. But ideally, juries are instructed to focus on facts and evidence, not personal feelings about someone's lifestyle or status. Whether that always happens in practice is another story.